That's what I'm talking about, son. Get you some of that daggone pie.
Woo-hoo! Looky there. There's your bug-eyed big one right there.
Getting started. We're getting started.
Here's what I'm talking about. Gosh dang gorilla.
Let's go, baby. Straight meat. God, look at that big one.
Tired of searching through ads to find bass articles in your favorite fishing magazine? Well, we have a solution for that. Introducing Bass Angler Magazine with over 30 articles in every issue, filled with tips and techniques to help you catch more fish. Follow the pros as they publish the most up-to-date seasonal methods to catching bigger bass. Whether you're a beginner or professional angler, make Bass Angler Magazine part of your gear today. Be a part of the fastest growing bass publication in the nation. Log on to bassanglermag.com with code TV and save 20% when you subscribe now.
All right, welcome into the show, everybody. I'm your host, Big Ed, and on the line tonight, I have got a guy who's been an elite angler fishing the Elite Series, I should say, and he's been doing it since 2021. He qualified back there through one of the toughest ways to do it. He was the first, and this is kind of what makes it extra tough. He was the very first to do it from the Bass Nation National Championship. That's how he came aboard, got to the Elites. Now he's also coming from the islands, so that made it even tougher. He wasn't, and we figured it out that he wasn't the first to make it off the islands to represent out there and to fish, but he's out there and he's still doing it to this day. And I want to invite and welcome in Matty Wong, man. Thanks for coming on.
Hey man, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Great, man. We just talked about it. I was in the middle of researching all this stuff, and he comes on, and it was like, okay, well, we'll just ask him. So on the air, we'll talk about it a little bit. And I like to be transparent. I didn't get it all done like I normally do, but hey, we got some good information on you now. And one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, which is going to be, I think, really pertinent and interesting to a lot of people out there, is we're going to be talking some swim bait fishing in the winter. Now, a lot of people, they're used to it in the spring and they want to, but cold water and fish eating swim baits, it seems a little out there, I would say. And I know, but a lot of guys are doing it and they're catching big fish. And I'm sure you're one of them that goes out there and swings for the fences once in a while. But as a tournament angler, let me start off with this question. How much does swim baiting make a difference in your everyday tournament life? I mean, is it something that, I have a lot of confidence that I'm going to catch a big kicker and I go out and spend 2 hours doing it? Or is it something like right spot, right place? What is it that makes you tick when it comes to swim bait fishing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think swim baits are a very powerful tool, and when used correctly, can be used towards your advantage. It's one of those few baits that you can pick up, and once you have confidence in that bait, it can be really, really dangerous. And it can also hurt you too. It's kind of like you live by the sword, die by the sword when you are throwing it. But with that being said, when you really spend a lot of time doing it and learning the nuances, you kind of then can find stream in the times to pick it up and when to put it down.
Okay.
And I think for tournament anglers, it's important to know when those times are. And, the more you spend time with it, and whether we're talking about glide baits, we're talking about, boot tail style baits, wedge style tails, like all, and everything in between, from, anything from 5 inches all the way up to 12 or 14. There's a gambit of sizes when people say swim baits. So if we're speaking in specifics, large swim baits in the wintertime, you're going for very few bites. So I guess the question for you would be, would you want me to kind of dive in my uses during tournaments during the winter? But because most of the time it's like pre-spawn when we get going, you know?
Well, that's one of the things I was going to say is that, you just mentioned three very distinct baits, and size-wise, we're talking about guys that throw 8-inch, 12-inch, 1.5 foot long, baits, all these different
Crazy.
sizes
It's
and things
crazy.
like that. And I guess if we talk about this in a tournament sense, you're probably not going to be going out there on tournament day and saying, you know what, I think I'll throw a 12.5-inch bait today all day long and just hopefully I catch one 14-pounder. That's just not the way tournaments work. And especially, the elites and that sort of thing. You're fishing against some of the top anglers in the world. So you have to ask yourself time management, right? And I'm guessing with swim, I throw swim baits a lot myself and I understand, I like it, but it's something I do in the fun time. Tournaments, I can't imagine you guys going out there and spending a lot of time doing it. So the question I would have is for you on the circuit, if you were out there and you had one size to pick up and throw every day, or just to throw during the day and say, you know what, I'm going to use this after I catch my limit. I catch a decent limit of fish. You're still fishing for 5-fish limit. There's, the elites are 5 fish, and you're not worrying about a score tracker. You're not following all this stuff. So what is that one bait that, swim bait wise, what is that one bait that you pick up and go, this is the one I'll put on the deck, and if I get the right spot, I'm going to throw this one?
6 and 8-inch mag draft.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean,
a 6-inch what?
6 or 8-inch mag draft.
Oh, okay.
There's the mag draft's versatility is pretty. The range is very wide, and the cool thing about that bait, it has such a defined slow methodical kick, and then also if it's perfect, if it's like you perfectly tune it to do what you want it to do, then it's a fish catcher. And I've definitely made some money off of that bait, and I know a lot of people have. So that should come as no surprise to a lot of guys, but from others that might be afraid of like throwing a 6-8-inch bait during a tournament. Again, it's just knowing when to pick it up, whether you're coming up on a general point, a mainlay point or a secondary point that you're coming up on, instead of picking up, your crankbait that you've been burning, or it all depends on your fishing style or the way that you're attacking the day. But making that cast, those first couple casts with a swim bait, and then from there going in and methodically picking apart what your other primary technique that you're attacking, like whatever pattern that you're running for the day.
Yeah, and that was
you come to, which is just basic,
Well, and that was the question I was going to have right there, is that and you said that it's like when you come to that right spot, when you come to that right place. If you're, you're talking to a bunch of guys out here who some are, tournament anglers, obviously, and some of the listeners out here are pretty new to the whole thing. And how do you tell them this, if you're going to throw a spinnerbait, a swim bait, if you're going to pick up a swim bait and you're going to throw it out there, what are you looking for? What can you tell them? It's like, you know what, if you see this, pick that bait up and throw it, because that's where you want to be hitting it. What is that spot that just makes you a little giddy about picking that big? I mean, 6 and 8 inch is still, I'm not saying those are giants, but they're definitely still a big fish bait right there.
Yeah, I mean, 2-pounders will crush I can't tell you how many 2 to 3 pound fish I've caught on an 8-inch mag draft.
Yeah.
And let alone the 6, but it's a bite-sized bait, even though it appears to be large to us as humans, where we have hands and we can pick it up. But for a bass that could be 2 pounds and suck in something when crumpled less than 2 inches, it's fairly easy. Collapsibility is important with swim baits, but in reference to your previous question on what the spot that makes me giddy, if we're talking about the winter time, I'd be talking about your main lake points,
Okay.
your offshore humps, your creek channels, and depending on the body of water that you're fishing, if you want to chase them suspended, doing that as well. I mean, it's, especially now
Okay.
with the whole forward-facing sonar deal, it really opens up the entire lake, and it opens up, swim bait fishing as well.
Yeah, that's funny.
way
That's what everybody always ends up talking about right there. Is it's like, oh, on the forward-facing sonar, and it's like, yeah, that is. I don't want to say that's changing. It is definitely changing bass fishing as we know it. You would agree on that one?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
What's your feelings on it? I'm curious.
I want it outlawed. No, I'm just kidding. I personally, I think it's just another tool. And I'd love to say, oh, it's catching all the fish and that's what's going to win every tournament, but it isn't, and it's just another tool. And
Yeah.
when you learn how to use that tool, it's going to make you a better angler because of it. I just had Boyd Duckett on last week or 2 weeks ago, and we just discussed. Actually, it is going to be it is going to be a week because I missed one during the holidays, so you're the one making it up. So last week we talked to Boyd Duckett, and he told me, he said it's changing the way we do things, and it's changing the way that you fish. You're not old enough to know back when the flashers were the only thing that they really had to fish with. Guys in the front of their boat.
My first depth finder, my first depth finder in Hawaii, we had a flasher on our 8-foot game fisher.
Yeah, but that wasn't what you were relying on completely, was it?
Yeah, I was still learning how to tie knots.
All right. I mean, that's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in the 90s, fishing in Hawaii was, I remember my dad's first depth finder was a paper depth finder. And seeing that kind of stuff. So, and it's been, yeah, I mean, so I'll give you a little bit backstory of my, I don't want to digress. Actually, we're talking about.
I know because you can honestly go on and talk about fish finders and all that to this day. But I mean, I think, like I said,
for those of you guys out there for those that are listening in that know my story, and for those who haven't heard it before, the way that I won the nationals was with 1 6-inch graph off the front of my boat that I used for just 2D down and water temp on the Ouachita River on a 1990 Ranger with one working gas tank. And so I was using my Navi on my phone, and with my only graph on the console was a X92 Lowrance, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yes.
So the whole thing with the forward-facing deal, I've had to learn how to adapt it in my fishing style because the way that I was raised and the way that I was brought up was fishing a lot off of instinct. But like I said, I don't want to digress to that whole story. We're talking about winter time. We're talking about winter time swimming. I can go down a rabbit hole on that whole topic, but I think there's a part of it that I can talk about with the technique currently with wintertime swim baiting is now you can go and check. So if you have it on your boat, going out and check, you can check these main lake points a lot faster and a lot more efficient. But the thing is that I would say is like be conscious of, you might scan that tree stump out there and you're like, oh, there's nothing on it, and then you move on. Instead of making the cast, lining up and still making the cast and rolling a swim bait by it, and then from there you can, a lot of times there's fish that you won't see on that thing. So don't be completely reliant on that. And it's a forever learning tool, I think, for me right now as I'm implementing it into my style and into the tournament style. And it's incredible the things that you're able to see, and especially with someone who has my whole life of learning from different mentors of different styles of fishing, from saltwater fishing to stream fishing to fly fishing to deep sea trolling to you name it. the bass has always been something that's so intriguing to me in the way and the nuances of that one fish throughout the entire country can act completely different, but also have almost predictable, patterns that you can throw. And so it's so intriguing to me, the way that, with just the being able to see how these fish react and how they move now in real time, how they set up. Like, it's something we had like an idea of what they did before, but it's to actually see where, okay, that biggest bass that's in that lake is setting up on a rock pile that's out in like 60 feet off the main lake point. And now you can pull that fish off that rock pile with a cast that you've lined up perfectly and see if you have a follower or not. And then if not, move on. So it's fascinating in a sense where, yeah, you can get drawn into doing that. So I wouldn't recommend doing that during a tournament unless you already know that fish is there. And then most of the time I wouldn't throw a swim bait, I'd throw a drop shot.
Oh, there you go.
So it's an important thing. So like in pre-fishing, throwing bigger baits, I like to throw bigger baits and while I'm pre-fishing, because I'm able to really see what lives in certain places, that, especially on bodies of water where there's a lot of other fish that are in the system, like whether it's carp or perch and all those other things. It all kind of boils down to what region you're fishing, but you can get really, really distracted by that stuff in the wintertime. So like,
hi, this is Josh McMurray. I'm the city manager for the city of Oakley. We're located on the Delta. We have a beautiful shoreline, and we really want to promote the city as the gateway to the Delta and showcase everything that we have to offer. We have a beautiful downtown that's expanding, brand new restaurants. What we're trying to do is build that brand to make sure that people know that you can come to Oakley and you can do everything that you want associated with the Delta, and you can still stay here, eat here, and have a good time in a very family-friendly and safe environment.
Well, that was something I was going to ask you is some anglers that I've talked to have said exactly what you just said. Like, it is a great tool for pre-fish. Like, it gets you the opportunity to see that, let me step back just a half a sec. Basically, those fish, if you find a 5 or 6 pounder in pre-fish, you're going to go back and you're going to fish for that 5 or 6 pounder in the tournament. And he's in that area. He probably doesn't. Most of these fish are very territorial and they will stay in the area. And I'm guessing that's what you're using these swim baits in pre-fish. Throw out, you find a 5, 6 pounder here, you find a 5 pounder there, you find a 4 pounder there, you find a school of threes, you find it, whatever it is, it gives you that opportunity to go back. Would you say that if you're just out having fun and you're going to go out for the weekend and you're not fishing a tournament, you're not doing anything, chucking a swim bait in the wintertime, you can catch a good fish, if you're willing to give up the numbers.
Yes, agreed.
So in pre-fish, when you're doing that, is that pretty much all you're trying to use it for? Is to search for those bigger fish that you might want to, go after again with a different bait? Or do you think that if you pull them out with that swim bait in pre-fish, that you're going to pull them out and you're going to get that bite in the tournament circuit or during the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times, your bigger class fish they'll come out because of the size of the meal that you presented to them.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go back and like try and flick like a Senko and whatnot, and like sometimes it may work, but a lot of times on the pressured fisheries, it really doesn't. And then you have to know when to go, and so that's why I said it's a tool that you have to know when. Like, there's times where I'm like, yeah, I just won't have one out ready to go, and then like maybe the weather changes and I'm like, oh, okay, it's gonna go down.
Okay.
Yeah, but for the weekend angler that wants to get numbers, you know, again, it all kind of depends on what you're trying to do. Because if you're just a weekend guy, in my opinion, like a lot of guys just want to go out and catch fish, you know, and like don't want to just maybe get 1 or 2 bites. But for me, the way I approach it, like when I'm fun fishing in the wintertime, is you're only going to get 1 or 2 bites most of the time anyways.
Yeah.
Depending on how tough your fishery is. I mean, obviously there's some places that you'll like lights out catch 50, 60 fish, which I've done, like, you know, deep spooning fish, which is a blast. But if you're swimbait fishing in the winter, you're definitely looking for your big mamas.
Right.
So it's, and yeah, you just want to make sure everything's ready to go too. Well, when you get that opportunity.
I was just going to ask you that. Is that something when you're, you know, what's your big fit? What's your big swim bait? 6, 8 inch. What's your setup? I mean, that's I think probably one of the things that most people are apprehensive, I guess, about even to this day. You know, when it first kind of came out, there was a couple fishing rods out there that before the big swim, you know, before the new rods came out, but there were a couple that this is what you used, and they were absolute broomsticks. I mean, it was like, nope, this doesn't bend when you do it, and you don't play a fish, you don't do this. How much has that changed, and what's your setup and approach to these baits now? What is it that you want to see and do line wise? You know, are you throwing it on braid? Are you throwing it on mono or fluoro? How do you set it up to fish for these fish with a swim bait?
During, again, like, are we talking tournament time, or are we talking
just the everyday average fisherman? I mean, for tournaments, I'm guessing that it's probably going to be semi close, tournament wise compared to fun fishing, or is it a big difference for you?
I mean, I'm very grateful to be with a company that has an incredible lineup of swim bait rods. So, I mean, that's a perfect question, because
And who is it?
My go-to, you know, 6 to 8 inch soft bait rod is a Megabass Mark 56, and that rod is it's phenomenal. You don't get, there's no casting fatigue. There's just enough tip where you can still, you know, make pinpoint cast with it. And I mean, I don't have the specs pulled up right in front of me, but it's one of my favorites.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah.
So that rod I fish a lot. And then for my bigger, for like the Clash 9s, like your bigger, like wedge tail style baits, I'll go and use it's called a Leviathan.
Leviathan. Okay. Same, both by Megabass?
Yes. No. These are all Megabass rods. Sorry,
okay.
I failed to mention. Yeah, the Destroyer is probably my go-to. It's called the line is called Destroyer P5, and the model itself is the Mark 56.
Okay.
So that's kind of like my go-to when throwing that kind of stuff. And then you can also, what I like about that rod is, as well as the versatility on throwing smaller glides, which are, whether you're a weekend warrior or tournament fisherman, I mean, it's something that, especially guys that are maybe on the, I don't want to spend like $200 on a glide bait. I don't want to spend $100 on a glide bait. Like, there's so many different options now that you can go and throw, you know, these affordable baits that swim very, very well. But that rod, that Mark 56, I'm able to throw, you know, all my sub 8-inch glide baits as well. So there's just enough parabolic bend through that rod that you're able to keep treble hooks pinned, and yeah, it's a great one.
Tackle Warehouse has been the premier online tackle shop since 2003, with a huge selection of not only the latest and greatest from the biggest brands, but the hard-to-find regional specialties as well. Tackle Warehouse. Click, save, fish.
So what I was saying was my reel setup and line. I like to use like a Shimano Chronarch or Metanium. The Corrado is a little light. The Tranx is a great reel that is pretty affordable for your bigger swim baits. I wouldn't throw anything but a Tranx when you start, or obviously if you have more money and you can if you want to invest in a Calcutta or those other Conquest and other bigger reels. But for me, having like this compact bait casters, I really like that Tranx and along with the Metanium and the Chronarch. But as soon as you get into that the bigger class baits, you want to have something that you can still keep them coming. And when you're using a reel that doesn't have like a very race off, you're not going to be able to turn the head of when you want it, when you need it to, I should say. But the type of line that I prefer is the FC Sniper by Sunline, and for my 6-inch mag draft, I like to utilize 16-pound tests, and then for the 8-inch, I like to throw it on 18 or 20.
Okay. Yeah, and it's I was kind of wondering about that because line size, I don't. When you're talking about, you mentioned drop shotting, and it's like, yeah, line size. I think line size matters in drop shotting. I don't think it matters in swim baits that much. Do you? I mean, other than action. Do you agree with that, or is that something that you still want to try to get the smallest but most powerful line or strongest line you can?
Yeah, no, I would say, I mean, line definitely affects the way your swim bait swims. So it's a very important thing because you can be throwing, mono, and you want your bait to be a sinker, and that's messing up your bait already. So it's knowing, with swim baits, boot tail style cast and retrieve baits, you want to use fluorocarbon, and when you're using a lighter line, you're going to get more action in that bait.
I
think the idea of like, I'm going to just tie it up with 25 pound and it's going to swim the same way, it's in my opinion it doesn't. But with glide baits, 25 pound is, depending on the size of the glide, like I would say that's also acceptable because they're staring more so at the glide than what's clipped to the front of
it. Yeah. When I want to take this right back to, kind of like I guess when swim baits first came out, and I know that probably most everybody knows all the different ways you can throw a swim bait now. How much does, you came up in California, learning some of the West Coast styles and that sort of thing. How much is it today that throwing that bait out, letting it sink to the bottom and just reeling it real slow, like barely moving the handle, keeping that thing on the bottom, keeping bottom contact? And is that important in the way you fish it now? Or is, and this is where I guess the new, forward-facing sonar comes in, and it's like, fishing for suspended fish, you fish it differently. Or what is your most productive way? I guess would be the easiest way to ask this question. What is your most productive way of catching fish today with swim baits?
Hey folks, Randall and I want to talk to you real quick about choosing the right electronics mount for your bass boat.
Mark and I have been partnered with Bass Boat Technologies from the very beginning, and we know the quality and effort that Van Foster has put into this company.
Custom, that's the one thing that I think about whenever I think of Bass Boat Technologies. Van Foster has spent years, not hours, years perfecting these mounts. He works with just about every bass boat company out there, most models for every bass boat company out there. He has spent the time working on these bass boats. So what you get is a custom fitted mount, not some mass produced universal mount for every bass boat out there. Van makes them custom fit for your bass boat.
Bass Boat Technologies also makes a lot of other custom parts. Seat pedestal plugs, tool holders, steering wheel spacers, and battery trays are all made with the same attention to detail that Bass Boat Technologies is known for.
Bass Boat Technologies is a vital part of our livelihood, and it's very important to your overall boating experience also.
Absolutely, and that's why we choose Bass Boat Technologies. Check them out at bassboattech.com. You'll be glad you did.
I mean, you nailed it. The whole forward-facing sonar deal.
Yeah.
Now I'm in a position where my hand is forced. Where,
Okay.
Yeah, I'd rather go out and have fun. Like, I like shore fishing. I like fishing from the bank.
Okay.
I like the excitement of gliding a 8-10 inch glide underneath the dock and getting smoked and not knowing when that bite's going to happen. Like, that's something that like drew me into swimbait fishing initially. And now it's changed. Like, last year in pre-practice, I went out to Lake Murray and caught a few fish that were in that 7 to 8 pound class, and like just had a ton of fun just with the glide there. And yeah, they didn't set up like that for the tournament, but it was the it's super fun I think that with forward facing sonar, now you can line up, right? I personally feel that these bigger fish can feel it, and they get conditioned to it. And once the fish is there, I actually just turn all my stuff off, and if I'm going in just to fish one.
Wow. Okay.
So that's just my theory, and especially with close combat fish that you are trying to sneak up on that are resident fish. I mean, this happens a lot in the desert. This is how I almost won the regionals on Lake Havasu, where it was a smallmouth tournament. Well, there's largemouth in there too, but just using a glide bait, I was able to catch a couple really key fish, which I honestly feel like if I didn't catch those fish, I wouldn't be where I am today, because that's what qualified me for the nationals.
Wow.
So it's tough because you need to stay tuned in. You need to stay. I feel like the human hunting instinct and your instinctual calls are very, very powerful. And knowing when like you have an idea that there's a big fish in the area, you can sneak up, make a long cast, whatever, without making too much noise. Other people will argue you can go like straight up to them and drop something on their head and they'll eat.
I think swimbaiting is such an intriguing thing for most people, and I listened to what you've said here and the way that you like it, and the glide bait makes a big time presence in what you're talking about this time of year. The boot tail, that sort of thing. How much do you, I guess, lean on some of the smaller baits, like some of the Kitech baits? Still a swim bait technically, or even some of the tinier bait, so that maybe somebody who's out there, it's like, I just have no confidence in that, but I would love to pick up a ball head on with a small swim bait on it. There have definitely been this year, and it has been talked about a ton. And I'd like to take it maybe back down to that a little bit and talk a little bit about how do you approach throwing some of the smaller swim baits, and is this time of the year still okay to do that?
Again, it's kind of like your fishery.
Hmm.
So I want to really be able to dive into each, but it kind of goes more so along the lines of, you know, what's the forage and what are you trying to
Okay.
imitate. So, you know, if your fish are feeding up on shad right now, dying shad deep out in the middle of the lake, then you're going to be throwing shad baits, and other places that there's trout right now. So then you're throwing, you know, trout style baits, from hitch to herring, you name it. So there's ways that you can use the smaller style bait right now, especially when they're out deep, just throwing on a bigger ball head, and scoping them out deep. I would say I wouldn't call a straight tail swim bait like like the jerk shad that Gussie was using a swim bait. I would say that that's more of like a fluke style bait.
Right.
So I mean, for me, yeah, I categorize like a spark shad, for instance, a 3-inch spark shad. Yeah, it's considered a swim bait because it swims. You know, for me, the tail kick, it's like it's a kitech, it swims. So
Right.
yes, but you know, then you have like the core quote unquote swim baiters that are, you know, when they say swim bait, then that means big baits only.
Okay.
And so it kind of yeah, so it kind of depends on who you're asking.
Well, and yeah, and
You know,
that's
what
honestly
part of
why
the
I'm
world
asking you
too,
about
right?
it. Right. Well, that's why I'm asking you about it. Is it, you know, it's such a thing that the average angler that goes out on a weekend, you know, gets off, he's gonna go out, I'm gonna go fishing, him, she, whatever, goes out and says, hey, I want to catch some fish. And you give them and we've already said, you know, it's like, hey, if you pick up that big bait and throw it, is there a chance you're going to catch the fish of your lifetime? Of course there is. Is there a chance that you're going to catch one fish all day? Of course there is. But it's also, hey, if you go out in the wintertime and you want to throw a small swim bait, you know, you want to throw a 3-inch kitech, a 5-inch kitech, a 4, you know, whatever, a small kick, you know, spark shad, whatever it is, and you're throwing that bait around, are you going to, now, in my opinion, you're probably not targeting the largest fish of your lifetime, but you're also still fishing in the winter. What's the odds throwing that kind of bait, do you think, that you're going to catch big fish still? Is it more that you're still throwing a swim bait in the winter? Or is it that, you know what, you're focusing on a less large super class bass at that point?
Yeah, it's tough to say because it's tough to. Elephants eat peanuts, right?
Right.
But in the bass world, my opinion is a lot of these bigger fish don't want to move for a small bait. A lot of these fish, because they're just trying to conserve energy wherever, you know, if it's super cold out, they're still feeding. When people are like, yeah, they're lethargic, I'm like, yes, it's true, they're lethargic, but they still need to eat. But when they want to eat, is they'll make precise movements to exert that energy, and that's usually for a bigger bait versus like a 3-inch smaller bait. Again, it depends on what part of the country you're fishing, because we can be talking about up in the Great Lakes where a 3-inch swim bait, you're going to catch you can catch your 6-pound smallmouth, versus if you're down in Okeechobee, you can be, you know, throwing like some 8-inch like bluegill style bait, and, you know, or bluegill colored bait, and catch giants down there. So it depends on your region. So I would say like up in NorCal, you get you know, those higher reservoir lakes, very clear, gin clear water, and a lot of times, yeah, those little 3 to 5-inch baits work. But you're only targeting kind of a certain class. I wouldn't say your biggest trophy fish in that lake are going to be feeding up on that. But I mean, not to say you couldn't trick one either.
Well, I mean, what you just said is that if you get lucky and you throw a 3-inch bait 2 inches from his mouth, he's probably going to eat it. But if you take a big swim bait and you throw it 3 feet from his head, he probably is going to come chase it. Is that about right?
Yeah. Yep. You kind of cut off for a good part of that first question. So
I said so. Well, that's all right. That's why I have an edit button. So what I'm saying is that if you get lucky and you take your 3-inch swim bait and you're throwing it out there and you move it and you get it 3 inches from that fish, and he might eat it. Or you could take a big giant swim bait, a big trout style swim bait, 8 inches, throw it out there, and if you get it within 3 feet of him, you might get that fish. That's basically what you're saying, right?
I mean, that's part of it. I get it all. It's all situational, because I've seen things down in Florida that we would, if we were in California on the West Coast, we'd be like, wait, are you serious? And then vice versa.
Okay.
Like I've put giant baits in front of big fish here on the West Coast, and they've laughed at me. And I've also caught decent fish with small baits there as well, but primarily in the wintertime, if we're talking swim baits. I mean, I'm going just to go and have fun to catch a big one, and if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. Like prepping up for a tournament in the wintertime, or let's say I wouldn't consider it winter. I just like to think of it as like a pre-spawn. It's something that I would be more so focusing in on, looking offshore and that kind of stuff. Just kind of that's a major majority of where a lot of these fish are being caught in your deeper parts of upper highland reservoirs, I should say, or dammed lakes, whatnot.
Okay.
But yeah, I can go off on crazy side tangents. So my apologies.
That's okay.
We're talking about kind of swim bait fishing, like so in the winter. So I'm still trying to.
Well, I'll
dial in on the nuances.
Well, I'll tell you what. We've got about 10 to 12 minutes left of the show here, and I have a question. But at the end of this, I really want people to kind of get to know you a little bit more and where to follow you, some of your sponsors even more. But I have a question. So you came from the islands, right? Is that where you grew up, or did you grow up in California? Where was it that you grew up?
I grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii. I was born and raised on the island of Oahu, and I didn't move. I moved to California in 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the question I have then, because I wanted to make sure that before I asked it that I was even in the right boat. But how does a kid growing up on Honolulu, Hawaii, get into bass fishing? What is is there bass fishing in Hawaii, first of all? And two, is it one of those things that, you just fell in love with it and started going? Or how did you fall in love with this, and how did this become a sport for you?
We have on the island of Oahu and on the island of Kauai, there's reservoirs.
Okay.
And in those reservoirs, we have peacock bass, there's largemouth bass, and there's smallmouth bass in some of the streams on Oahu, and also on Kauai as well. And as a little boy, my dad would take me to the lake and go catch tilapia, and just as having fun with a little bamboo hand pole. The older that I got, by the time I was 4, he put a spinning rod in my hand, and I learned how to throw a spinning rod. And then by the time I was 8, learned how to throw a bait caster. And so I've been eaten up by it ever since. And it wasn't until I moved out to California was I really able to diversify my techniques. In Hawaii, we don't have grass mats, we don't have fluctuating weather patterns, so it's a pretty consistent 72-degree water temps year round in the reservoir. And so it's you're fishing a lot of reading the bank style fishing, reading laydowns, learning how to flip trees and that kind of stuff. the water is not clear as what you would think. Just because it's just because it's in the tropics doesn't mean that it's like the cleanest water. But yeah, it's kind of like a stain to it. So ever since then, I've just been completely eaten up by bass fishing. So when I moved to California in 2013, and that's when I realized, wow, I'm kind of in a mecca of this sport. Was one of my mentors growing up. One of my dad's best friend, Bob Gerback, was from Roseville, Sacramento. So I've fished Folsom Lake and Orville with him when I was a little kid. So anyone who knows me, I knows I'm completely eaten up by fishing, and it's not all bass fishing, but bass has been definitely a big part of my life. I've been a lifelong BASS member since I was like a tiny little kid. So I've always dreamed of doing what I get to do now, which is really special. It's something that I used to just watch on TV and never think that would be a reality. Looking 25 years ahead. So yeah, it's very, very, very blessed and very grateful for what I get to do. Just to tell you a little bit about all the people that sponsor me and Mega Bass. If you don't know the brand, you should familiarize yourself. It's one of the most premier engineered, just the level of ingenuity and the scrutiny of detail. It's definitely changed my fishing for sure. Going down to Bastrix, a local company in California, the guy Brian Evans was an incredible bait maker, and he's taken a brand, formed it into something really special. So that I'm really happy to be working with a local brand out of the West Coast. Electric sunglasses, Tim's, with outerwear, performance outerwear. Wouldn't want to wear anything else when you're out in foul weather. Yeti coolers, quiet carry knives, Sunline, incredible line company, all my fluorocarbon, all my mono, everything Sunline, same as Gamakatsu for my hooks. And that's a company that is also, when I seeing Gamakatsu come out of that brand, and it's really incredible to be able to work now. And last with I got Powerhouse lithium batteries, which is I personally think the same company, the amount of the owner Bob has done into those batteries and their quality control, it kind of sets them aside. And last but not very least, a brand out of Southern California called Lateral Vision, a lifestyle clothing brand, and they actually make a lot of my personal merchandise for me, which I'm extremely grateful for. So if you guys want to help support me, you can go ahead and check them out at lateralvisionbrand.com. And when you log on, you can check out my whole collection. If you go and type in Matty Wong in the search bar, my whole personal collection comes out, and all the profits and whatnot goes to supporting me on the road.
Wow.
And if you're on the YouTubes, I would urge you all to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Matty Wong Fishing, where I vlog every Monday from my recent bass trip out to Japan. I did a 4-part series of my 3.5-week stay out there, to bull trout fishing in British Columbia and everything in between. So I always try and keep it entertaining and kind of give my followers an inside look on what it's like fishing the Elite Series. And then if you're on Instagram, Matty_Wong, and Facebook, it's Matty Wong Fishing, and you can go ahead and follow and like that page as well. And that'd be again, just greatly appreciated. I really appreciate you taking the time and setting up this call.
Oh no.
And my apologies at any time that I had kind of got off tangent a little bit. It's a topic that I can speak on, but I can speak on more too if we're talking in specifics and regions. It's kind of hard to talk blanket swimbait fishing.
Yeah, and it's tough, and I get that, and I appreciate you coming on. I know it was tough for us to kind of make all the connections, but we got it done, and you came on here. A few things, that might be, if you guys didn't, catch something or hear something, shoot him a question if you have a question that something he said that maybe got scrambled. I know that it's been a little bit of tough audio every once in a while. I will try to clean up as best I can. And I mean, if you got something you're like, you almost said something and I missed it, but shoot him a question. I'm sure he's out there. I'm sure he'll answer, and follow along. I mean, that's the whole point with the social media right now, is being able to get you guys out there, get in touch with some of these top anglers. Matty is, everybody I talk to, I got to say this, because I love when I hear this. Everybody that I talked to about you said nothing but rave, reviews, and said what a nice guy you are, and how they've had everything that they've ever dealt with you has always been on a positive, and they really enjoy being a fan of yours, and it's made them a fan of yours, and I think they find that tonight.
That's humbling.
and I think that some of the information you've got tonight, if you guys didn't learn anything tonight about swimbait fishing in the wintertime, I don't know, re-listen, because he put out a lot of information, right?
There's a lot of stuff in there. You just got to listen to the, find the golden pockets here and there.
Exactly. I mean, it is tough, and it's one of those things that, like you said, you can go off on a tangent on this or a tangent on that, because it's such a broad spectrum of what to fish, and I try to break it down. And we'll have some other, we'll talk about it again, I'm sure, in the future. But for now,
yeah, definitely.
Matt, I just want to say thanks, man. I will be a person that follows along too, and hits some of those like buttons and share buttons. And if you're out there and you're listening to this show, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And again, share it with your friends and let everybody know, and let everyone know about Matty. And I'm sure we'll have him. I'll send him all the links. He can send it out there himself. So thanks for coming on and doing the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, definitely. I really appreciate it, James. I'm stoked that we got to talk and hopefully catch you later on down the season.
Absolutely. All right, man. We will we'll talk to you, and for everybody out there, good night, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. All right.
All right. Aloha.